There was a time when leaders could lead through power. They could lead through command and control. They could.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO could lead. And now leadership is not about power, it's about influence. It's about the impact you can make. And the secret to creating influence and impact is through your ability as a storyteller to captivate the hearts and minds and imaginations of people who want to go on your journey, who embrace your vision. Guy Chouinard at Patagonia, Phil Knight at Nike, Steve Jobs at Apple, Richard Branson at Virgin, masters of the craft.
Welcome to the Thrive Podcast, where we dive deep into tech entrepreneurship and strategic growth. I'm your host, Bill Potter, founder of Thrive Advisors, and I'm here to guide tech-led founders through the maze of challenges on their journey to maximizing enterprise valuations. Whether it's scaling your team, navigating market shifts, or unlocking new revenue streams, we explore actionable strategies and insights to help you thrive in today's competitive landscape. Join me as we uncover the secrets to strategic growth and success in tech startups. Welcome to the podcast where we unravel the secrets of brand magic. Today we're joined by Gair Maxwell, a master storyteller and a brand strategist. In his latest book, Big Little Legends, Gair unveils the Mona Lisa effect, a phenomenon that transforms ordinary brands into irresistible magnets for customers. Get ready for a wild ride through marketing history as Gair shares the real-life stories of everyday leaders who have achieved extraordinary results. Join us as we discover how to make your brand a category of one and become a word-of-mouth juggernaut. Without magic, it's just marketing. Welcome to the podcast, Gair.
Well, great to be here, Bill, and I can't wait to see where this conversation goes because I want everyone listening to Thrive to know we have not rehearsed, there is no script, because, it's just the way I've always done these podcasts. I want everyone listening or watching to really feel, Bill, that we ourselves don't know where this is going to take us.
Well, it will be a wild ride. So, can you share, the inspiration behind your book, Big Little Legends, and how it ties into your legacy, branding, and storytelling expertise?
Yeah, and it starts kind of sort of like it does in chapter 1 of the book. So the book is 12 chapters and it starts in Paris. And Bill, it was about the third time visiting the Louvre. I'd been to the Louvre before, but I think it was on the third visit is when the light bulb went on. And I can't stress enough how dim the light bulb was. It wasn't this big epiphany, all right? But it was, wait a second, it was that little ember or flare, whatever you want to call it, that was just burning away at me as I wandered through the museum, and I realized, I can remember what it felt like when I realized I'm not in a museum. Physically I am, but not metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really in an open market where there's 35,000 paintings, objects, and artifacts on display. And as I wandered through empty gallery after empty gallery, Bill, I saw these magnificent paintings, truly majestic and breathtaking in every way, and no spectators. I'm the only one looking at this thing. But there's one gallery where you go at that museum in Paris, and it is the mob rules. Black Sabbath, 1982, and Ronnie James Dio replaced Ozzy Osbourne as lead singer. No, you can't get in there. They're jammed packed. Okay, it's like a Taylor Swift concert today to update it, right? For one little 30 by 21 painting. And so if you look, especially if you're a tech founder, and if you look at Bill, how competitive is the tech world just to get noticed and get some attention? It would be
crowded
incredibly
marketplace.
Pardon me?
It's a crowded marketplace.
It's extremely crowded. So it's like numbers of lawyers in Chicago or numbers of, no, think about it. The numbers are astronomical. How many home renovation companies are there in America? How many secondhand stores are there? Go every single category. And it dawned on me that's what this museum is. It is a metaphor for the open market, and everyone's clamoring for attention. And so it just gnawed at me. And I'm sure people watching and listening have had things that they just wonder about. And for me, it's kind of sparked this quest to figure this out a little bit. Why does one product draw a crowd while others, even if judged to be of superior quality and performance, are completely ignored? Okay, so this is going on in my mind. And then, but the other part of me has this very real life experience, which I cover in chapter 2. So if chapter 1 opens in Paris, chapter 2 takes us to Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I realized that the story of the Mona Lisa was connected to the story out of Fredericton, New Brunswick. So I met Jim and his wife Donna in 2002. Small business, small mom and pop operation. Bill, they've got 5 employees on the day we met. And maybe a part-timer. They're doing about 1.2 million, 1.3 million in annual revenue. And the category they compete in is also very overcrowded. And I would contend they have the worst public reputation and perception of any category on the planet. So we're talking lower on the credibility totem pole than politicians and lawyers. And I'm gonna drop the category, and people will watch your face to see how unrehearsed this is. You ready, Bill?
Yes.
Okay, they sell used cars.
Oh my God. Of course.
Whenever I tell this story in public, how does every audience react?
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah.
In the brain, you see Herb Tarlick, bad plaid suits, the whole routine, right? And Jim and Donna never fit that stereotype. They are the nicest, kindest people you'll ever meet. In fact, in real life, they are low talkers right out of Seinfeld. Both of them. All right? And so we meet in 2002. And Jim, I was speaking at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast function, and Jim approaches me and barely making eye contact. He wants to know if we can work together to grow his small business. And I'll never forget the business card he handed me. And it said, "The glow of one warm thought is to me worth more than anything. Thank you." The card and the category, used cars, didn't match up in terms of what was going on in my mind. And so here's how this story evolved. 4 years later, from 2002 to 2006, 4 years of incremental growth. We were doing some soft skills training with Jim and his team at the time, and we saw incremental growth. And then in 2006, everything changed. And the jumping off point for exponential growth. We didn't change product. We didn't change pricing. We didn't change anything that everyone pays attention to in business, even to this day. We didn't do any of that. What we changed was the story. And will openly confess neither Jim or I knew exactly what we were dealing with. In retrospect, we are 2 kids with big jugs of nitroglycerin, and we have no idea how it's going to go off. All right? And we changed the story, and it started with a series of 30-second radio ads. So I want you to picture you're driving in your car, going down the main drag, Regent Street in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and you hear, well, he's the Romeo of roadsters. He's the Casanova of customer focus. By golly, he's been called the McDreamy of drive. Stop by at Jim Gilbert's and get your daily dose of Hugtonium, designed to improve your love affair with your car and your libido. Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Canada's huggable car dealer. Let that sink in. Canada's huggable car dealer. We told stories of the huggable car dealer. Bill, what did we not talk about? The product. We never talked about the cars. In every category, and you saw this in the conference we were at in Houston with Vistage, every
Right.
single category has its own language. The car business has a language that sounds like 0.9% financing on all makes and models. No credit, no problem. This weekend only. It's the massive inventory clearance event. Everything must go, 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 and every month is truck month. Right? They're all trying to outshout, outscream everybody else. So we go on and we do this. And within 6 weeks, complete strangers are coming up the gym looking for a hug. Now, in what world? Now, think about this. We're in the real world here. We're talking grocery store lineups, coffee shops, shopping malls, hockey games up here in Canada. Now, in what world do you or I or any of the listeners or viewers where does it have that a stranger approaches a used car dealer for a hug?
None.
It doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah. And so, again, we don't know what's going on at the time. Like, we're just following instinct, intuition. There's no plan, there's no process, but it felt right. And we were willing to go down that path. And Jim, much to his credit, was willing to really explore how far this could go. Within 6 weeks, I said, strangers are coming up to him. And slowly, over time, what happened was the little car dealership that could on the corner lot became a $50 million company employing 38 people.
Amazing.
6 weeks in, Bill, 6 weeks in, teddy bears. At first it was dozens of teddy bears. Then it's hundreds of teddy bears. And then it's mascots. It's merry-go-rounds. It's a 2-kilometer nature trail to go walk your dog. And 500 other things that bring the story and the legend of Canada's huggable car dealer to life. It's as though if Walt Disney was to picture a used car lot, this is what it looks like. Only one of its kind in the world. Never in a million years did I think when we started that it would become the number one independent used car lot in all 4 Atlantic Canadian provinces. It's an incredible success story. And for me, Bill, it was the lab to test a lot of theories out about the connection between storytelling, how that's vital to create the legend, and how it attracts the crowd, as you referenced earlier, the Mona Lisa effect. In 2019, when Jim and Donna celebrated their 40th year in business, more than 2,000 people lined up. I saw it. They lined up to shake their hand and give them a hug and congratulate them. Again, I ask it rhetorically, in what world do 2,000 people go out of their way to congratulate a used car dealer on 40 years in business?
That is an amazing story. The one that I remember that one, and the other one that stayed with me was the home improvement company. And
Right.
the common theme, and I'd love the audience to hear that one as well, but it's these companies that are becoming media companies first and their core business second. That's what really stayed with me.
Yeah, and so you'll appreciate from these very humble beginnings, I started to chart all these different commonalities, all these different patterns, and then as fate would have it, the the gentleman you're referencing is a guy named B.J. Wurzen. He's with a company called West Shore Home out of Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Again, it might as well be the middle of nowhere. 10,000 people, give or take? And he's doing bathrooms, doors, and windows. And when I met BJ, he's got 130 employees, and they're doing about 35 to 40 million in revenue. And he sits in the room And what happened, Bill, he heard the story of the huggable car dealer, and he didn't get caught up in the teddy bears and all that stuff. What he locked in on was strategy. Basically, you mean to tell me we can create a category of one starting with changing the language? And the answer is yes. You can't speak the same language as everybody else, and you've got to discover an identity far beyond your products and services.
Is that,
Anyone can sell used cars. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, is that the concept of big little stories?
Well, Big Little Legends is built on this idea of you can't create the legend without the story, but you got to know what's the story and what's the brand identity you're going to
Right.
create around this. You've got to know that. And the vast majority of companies don't. Whether they're tech companies or not, they think they do, but they don't because it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. As you saw in the Vistage session, when you start comparing website to website to website, you'll see everyone's recycling and regurgitating the same old category language. So, to your point with West Shore Home, it's recognizing an identity beyond product and service. And number two, as you pointed out, you're a media company first, you're a home reno company second. But if you're going to publish media content, consistent original publishing, then you've got to know, well, what are we going to, pin this what's the tail we're pinning on this donkey type thing. And in the case of West Shore Home, they, to their core, they very much value America's veterans, the military, the sacrifices. I think some of it has to do with that part of Pennsylvania. Mechanicsburg is in the shadows of Gettysburg. So it's a very, shall we say, people really appreciate military there, and BJ's no exception. And so, sure enough, we find out that we do this executive boot camp. We find out their values tend to be described as things like default aggressive, decentralized command, the laws of combat, extreme ownership. Like they are the metaphorical equivalent to the U.S. Navy SEALs meeting the Marine Corps, doing home renos. And it's like, okay, West Shore Home, 5 years. It's an incredible success story, what they've done with it. And anyone can go to their YouTube channel and readily see the evidence is all there on YouTube. It's great about the world we live in that way. And so West Shore Home, as of 2023, surpassed the $1 billion mark in revenues. They have 3,000 employees. They're in 39 locations and 19 states at last count. To me, the most significant statistic is the 13,000 job applications they get a month for people who want to be part of their mission to bring happiness to every home. It's a mission much bigger than installing bathrooms, doors, and windows.
So that process of uncovering and articulating the brand's core story is really where you begin with a new client.
It's all identity, Bill.
Right.
All of it is identity. I can't stress that enough. Identity, identity, identity. And I'm trying to recall if we ever did this in our session with Vistage. I think we did. But Nike, for example, has an
Yes.
identity that's top of mind. Do you remember that little exercise?
Yes.
Right. And what's the three words that we associate with Nike right away?
Just do it.
And what happened when I mentioned Reebok?
Blank stares.
Nobody knew. And that's not a shot or that's not a diss at Reebok for their product. They make good shoes, they make good sweatpants and hoodies and t-shirts. We're not talking product today. We are talking three intangibles: reputation, identity, perception. And Nike has an identity, and clearly Reebok and New Balance and some others don't. They're just interchangeable commodities. And I think this is particularly true in any industry associated with tech. It's probably more crucial because can I take a wild guess, Bill?
Go ahead.
Everyone in tech is innovative.
Yes. Good
Everyone's
guess.
cutting edge
Yes.
and bleeding edge, in fact.
Absolutely.
Right. After a while, it starts to sound like the car ad.
Mm-hmm.
And so the challenge is for the leaders to recognize, wait a second, the last thing we can do is look and sound like everybody else. And it's just what I find fascinating, and this will be an interesting part of the conversation, is that tech companies of all the categories that I've ever worked with, and there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens, but of all the categories, all a tech company leader has to do is look at Apple for inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most valuable brand in the world, tech or otherwise? It's
Apple.
Apple.
Mm-hmm.
So I every year a consultancy called Brand Global Finance releases its statistics of the world's most valuable brands, and I think, forgive me, I might be missing the numbers slightly, but not much. I think in 22 whatever it was worth 273 billion, and now Apple's at about 571 billion in terms of the intangible asset. That's what the brand is worth.
Right.
Right. I think it's gone up like, Bill, I think it went up like 74% in a year. Again, anyone can look it up, but I was surprised, but then again, I wasn't, because I had a chance to go to his house, Steve Jobs' house in Los Altos. It's, what is it, 32022 Chris Drive in Los Altos, California. The famous garage, where Jobs and Wozniak built this, what, $3 trillion company? And I got to spend about an hour there. In fact, if anyone is curious, they can go to my website, go to the blog. You'll find the archives. I do a series called Leaders and Legends. Like, it's all verifiable, all validated. Anyone can look it up. From 2019, I did the leadership legacy of Steve Jobs. And I had the good fortune of running into employee number 4 that day.
Oh,
So I
goodness.
got some insights, Bill, and that's what I'm fascinated by, is in history, how do we go back to the beginning to figure out how was the legend created in the first place? And so through 12 chapters of the book, we've pinpointed the exact day. So for the Mona Lisa, it's an exact day, and you know the day. It's August 21st, 1911. Painting had been around for 400 years and suddenly explodes in terms of worldwide notoriety. My friend Jim Gilbert had been around for 20 years and relative to his market blew up, right? It's the same thing. West Shore Home had been around since 2006 and in 2018, 2019 started to really take off. There's something, and the same is true for Apple. It was September of 1997 when Apple really blew it up and has never looked back. That's what I'm fascinated by. What are the forces that create the legend? How can they be duplicated and adapted and employed by any company out there? And I think, as an amateur historian, what fascinates me the most is that it doesn't matter whether it's B2B, B2C. It doesn't matter whether it's a nonprofit. It doesn't matter whether it's a person, a place, an object, an event. Legends can be created from anywhere, and it can be about anything. And so, what it really does is it opens up for any leader is the imagination in terms of, well, what's possible. And I just live in that world, Bill, every day in terms of working with and talking to people about, yeah, what's possible? Well, who knows? It can go places you can't even dream of.
Well, I recall you were talking about how important authenticity is in storytelling, particularly when you're building a brand legacy. Um, how can businesses ensure they remain authentic in their narrative?
Well, it's That's a little bit tragic, is that very word has now become just an overused buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but that's what's happened. I agree with your question. Here's where it comes from. That authenticity that we all seek. And I write about this in chapter 12. There's a great metaphor. The great American writer Stephen Pressfield called it the authentic swing. He wrote a book called The Legend of Bagger Vance that was later
Mm-hmm.
turned into a movie, right? It's, Will Smith and
Right.
Matt Damon, right? If you recall. And the caddy, Bagger Vance, is telling the golfer that every golfer's got an authentic swing. And that golf swing is as unique to every individual as a snowflake, a signature, or a thumbprint. No two golf swings are the same. And for me, that was the perfect metaphor to explain what this really means. It means it's already inside you. The authentic swing is not learned, it's remembered. And so, Jim Gilbert, the huggable car dealer, that's because he was already that nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was already kind and generous and giving, very soft spoken, but he did not fit the stereotype. In other words, Bill, if he was the town's rat bastard, this isn't going to work, right? If BJ Wurzen didn't deeply care about America and its veterans, their whole program around West Shore for Warriors and what they do to support veterans would never work. Why? It would be instantly seen and perceived as disingenuous. And so the short one word answer is values. What are
Mm-hmm.
your values? What makes you tick? What's your DNA or the soul of your organization? Jobs might be gone from this earthly plane, but his soul still lives on in that Apple brand and all over YouTube.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's no question of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same as Ferrari. For the Scuderia Ferrari, which dates back to 1947, that still lives on, even though Enzo passed away in 1988. And so the essence, call it whatever word you want, essence, soul, DNA. When you truly understand that, now you got me all wound up, Bill. When you truly understand that and you get it, and that's
Yes.
who you are beyond the product, you can tell those stories forever. When you don't know who you are, okay, when you don't, and you're chasing the market, or you're trying to pander to the audience, or you're trying to ride the latest trend, well, let's see if you and I can't pull off a great experiment on this podcast. I've never done it, but let's try it right now.
Sure.
Sure, there is an American beer company, and you and I are not going to reference it by name. But I think without knowing their true identity and who they were beyond the beer, I believe the latest I checked, the losses totaled over $10 billion of lost market share.
I believe you're right.
And we don't have to talk about the name.
No.
No. And anyone listening or watching will know exactly what we're talking about.
That is
And there's
very
a
true.
heavy price to pay, Bill. There's a heavy price to pay if you don't really know deep down beyond products and services what you represent, why you do what you do, and consequently, using that Nike Reebok example, I've distilled it down to the metaphor of cart before the horse. And that's why most marketing is ineffective, doesn't work, and goes in circles, because the horse is really identity and the cart is reputation. Figure out the identity first, then you build reputation off that. Failure to do so, and you're riding the marketing merry-go-round. You're going round and round and round in circles every year, every year, every year. And you're paying and paying and paying whatever fees you're paying but you never really feel that you're getting any traction. Why? The identity piece has not been figured out. You figure out identity, you jump off the merry-go-round, now you're on a dirt road with direction and purpose.
Well, clearly the significance of emotion and storytelling, as you're using that beer example, is significant. How do you evoke emotion positively, not negatively, to
Yes.
effective brand narratives?
Well, isn't that an interesting question? I'm glad you asked it because we talked about it in the Vistage session with Daphne. Can we do a quick shout out for Daphne
Yes.
and the wonderful work she does? We can do that?
I just interviewed her on my last podcast episode.
Oh, that's great. No, that was a wonderful visit. She does a great job. And we talked about it. Attention equals currency.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm glad here's why I'm glad you brought up the question, Bill. It's because there was a time when it was believed any press is good press. Not now. Absolutely not now. So, positive attention equals positive currency. Negative attention equals negative currency. The beer company is probably the best case study for this decade of exactly what we're talking about. I look at the last decade and I see Blockbuster and Kodak and Sears as the cautionary tales around innovation, failure to innovate, and you go down the drain like those three. I see the beer company as the cautionary tale of brand strategy in this decade. And so you have to be so mindful as a CEO, whether it's a tech company or any other company. To me, Bill, it all comes down to two factors. Marketing can be summarized into two key factors. Choose us, trust us.
Mm-hmm.
All the words, all the videos, all the pictures, all the external expressions still come down to choose us, trust us. Choose us. Why are we different? Trust us. Well, without trust, what do we have in the world of business? Nothing. Trust greases the wheels of commerce. And so the challenge, as I see it, we now live in a post-trust world. You can look at survey after survey that indicates the plummeting trust in our institutions, in government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so business leaders now, whether they like it or not, is irrelevant. Your enterprise will hinge, in terms of the growth of your enterprise, will hinge on your ability to earn trust. And consequently, you've got to be very cognizant of how trust plays out here on the phone. The battleground for attention is the phone. It is social media. It is, and so whether you like it or not, those who are going to win are going to be the media company first, the car business second. Right? It's recognizing the role of being media. What are you doing right now? You're doing media. Clearly, right? The podcast is like your own radio show from the 20th century. Right? YouTube is like your own TV channel. Blogs are like your own newspaper. It's all media to get attention. And so I think this is what business leaders have to get like exceptionally curious about. How do we do that and do it in a way that leaves our competitors in the dust?
Great point. Last question. What do you think are going to be the key trends or shifts in legacy branding and storytelling? I mean, you're talking about how it used to be any PR was good PR. Now it's not. So going
Yeah.
forward, how can businesses adapt and thrive in this evolving landscape?
Well, here's what I think. It comes back to storytelling because let's just restate it for absolute clarity. And even though it's overly simple, it's still worth repeating. You can't create the legend without a story. That's okay. But you also can't create the legend without courage in terms of facing your fears and going through the forest of the unknown. You got to take a risk. And that's going to be a personal risk. That's going to get outside of your comfort zone. And all those things, dealing with slaying the dragon called imposter syndrome. What I like what you just mentioned is storytelling to me, and I am the son of a former pro golfer, so I'll use this metaphor. Storytelling should be one of the 14 clubs in any leader's bag. And there was a time when leaders could lead through power. They could lead through command and control. They could.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO could lead. And now leadership is not about power, it's about influence. It's about the impact you can make. And the secret to creating influence and impact is through your ability as a storyteller to captivate the hearts and minds and imaginations of people who want to go on your journey, who embrace your vision. Guy Chouinard at Patagonia, Phil Knight at Nike, Steve Jobs at Apple, Richard Branson at Virgin, masters of the craft. Big Little Legends is the metaphor for the small to mid-sized business owners who have woken up and realized they can do the same thing as the best brands in the world, even though they have next to nothing in terms of budget. But that's okay because these platforms, for the most part, are free. And anyone can publish consistent original content. Do you remember, I told the story when we were in Houston about Bob Lennon of Thermalwood, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
He was the B2B manufacturer. They do thermally modified wood that they bake at 500 degrees. When he started this journey, biggest sales month he ever had was a $20,000 month. And this is a small company in a small town in Bathurst, New Brunswick. And Bob, I was talking to him last week, they just had their first $1 million month.
Oh, that's incredible.
Incredible success story. But here's the key. He's a media company that happens to do manufacturing. And for 6 years, he's been doing his weekly show. And that weekly show, over time, starts to spread. And what are his competitors doing? They're all focused on the products and services. Bob is focused on building the brand and building the legend.
Great storytelling.
It's
very good.
It's kind of essential,
It is.
Put it this way: it's hardwired into our DNA. No kid ever went to bed at night. Think about kids getting tucked into bed at night, right, Bill? No kid ever goes to bed at night saying, "Mommy, please tell me a statistic. Please show me the analytics." No, show me the analytics on Jack and the Beanstalk, right? No kid, and no one ever marched on Washington because of a pie chart.
No.
Or a series of bullet points.
Well, it certainly provides inspiration and hope to small emerging tech companies that are up against the largest tech companies in the world. That when you accomplish those requirements, the strategic growth is there.
Oh, absolutely. And if, lean into your story and really embrace your true identity, then no one can tell for certain where it could take you, how far you could go.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And go ahead.
It's my pleasure, Bill. It's a topic I never get tired of, and for anyone who wants to, I'm pretty easy to find on the internet, and we publish a series every month called Leaders and Legends that's free. The book is available worldwide on Amazon, and it's on Audible. The resources are all there. And we talked about this at the Vistage meeting. This is for leaders who display genuine curiosity, courage, vision, and initiative. That's the recurring pattern of leadership qualities I've seen over the years who've embraced this.
Well, and for our viewers, we're going to include a lot of information so that they can reach out and contact you as well. And thank you. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in today to today's episode of the Thrive Podcast. I hope our discussion with Gair was insightful, practical, and applicable to your entrepreneurial journey. I know it has been for my company. If you found value in today's conversation, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow entrepreneurs. Your support enables us to continue bringing valuable content to the community. Until next time, keep thriving.